We're recording. Okay, perfect. Thank you again, Matthew. So I want you to utilize the chat as much as possible within the first part of this, and there's a reasoning behind it. So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and I just want you to utilize the chat to answer the questions, and then we're going to dive a little bit into why I'm asking you these questions. But I want you, in one word, tell me, how are you feeling right now? Just give me a feeling word of where you're at right now. For me, I am feeling a little overwhelmed, frustrated, exhausted. Great word. Over it. Unsure. Relaxed. Weary. Wow. Thank you all so much for your vulnerability. Tired. Okay. Yeah. Relax. Stress. We're all over the map, right? Thank you so much. I'm good. Exhausted. Break is almost here. Packing for vacation with 2 little ones. Nicole. Wow. That's a lot. Actually, it's similar. I'm getting ready to live somewhat of a nomad lifestyle, and I am packing up my little car and getting ready to just kind of travel the United States month to month, which I'm so excited about, but very overwhelmed. I forgot that I've gotten rid of all of my furniture, so I've kind of had to put together a little. If you saw the inner workings of this room. But I love it. Our emotions are all over the place for a variety of reasons. The second question I want to ask is, if you could give your life a score right now on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it? So 1 being a little, I'm dissatisfied and there's a lot of things going on. That's on the 1 scale. The 10 is 10 out of 10. My life is amazing, where I want it to be, exactly how I want it to be. 6, lots of 8s, 9s, 5s, 8s. 7.5. I love that accuracy. 6, 7, 5, 8. Nobody's put a 10 yet. Nobody feels 10. Right. Okay, so we're all over the map with that one. Excellent. And I want you to remember the answers to these questions as well. So while I'm asking these questions and you're answering them, I want you to really pause and internalize on a lot of these answers. The next question: what 1 word describes the change you would like to experience in your life? If you could say in 1 word the change that you would like to experience in your life, what would that 1 word be? Or if you need it to be a few words, what would the change that you want to experience in your life, what would that be? Order, balance, travel, sleep, debt-free. Yes, amen, Russ. Gaining experience, retirement, parenthood, growth. Yes, Laura. Less stress. Yes, Laura. Better cook, Jan. I feel that. More time, Bonnie. Yes. Where is the time? House sold, Linda. Control, Nicole. That was a good one. Less stress. Yeah. Definitely. This is the last question that I'm going to ask, and then we're gonna move into our topic. Maldives and drinks. Lakeisha, thank you so much for your honesty. Yes, agreed. Okay, if you need a vacation, I want you in the chat, all caps, type in yes. If you don't need a vacation, you just must be on another playing field. Yes, 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 yes. Virginia, yes. Lakeisha, I love it. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I'm loving all the answers. Okay, so remember to internalize all of the responses that you gave, and we're gonna circle back around. I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you, and I'm gonna go through it. Let me share my screen real quickly. Let me pull my keynote. Goodness gracious. Let me stop sharing real quick so I can move this over here. Bear with me. feel like I want to do both at the same time. Let's try it again. Okay. So let me play. Okay, so let me introduce myself really quickly. So obviously, my name is Amy Kochik, and I'm going to give a little context to the topic that I am going over and why I'm so passionate. So I started off as a high school English teacher. I spent 7 years doing that. I quit to pursue a dream. And if you want to know what the dream was, I don't know, not this. That was essentially the dream. I had nothing else that followed it. So you can imagine the feedback I got on that. Once I quit, I decided to publish a book, taught myself how to self-publish, and this was around 2014. And it was very memoir based. It started off being nonfiction. It shifted into a memoir, and that memoir that I wrote ended up being what allowed me to leave the cult that I had been involved in for it was about 33 years when I left. So born and raised, cults don't call themselves cults, but after doing a lot of the research, it was indeed a cult that I grew up in. And telling my story and connecting to who I was, but who I had lost myself in with being in this organization. I left the cult. I started my life over here in St. Pete, Florida, and thus a business was born, which is called Amy Kochek Creative. I am a ghostwriter. I'm a writing coach. I'm an editor. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of training, and all of it is centered around story and the power of story and how being able to tell your story and connect to yourself through writing and different forms of writing, expressive writing, creative writing, all of those things kind of can help center you based on the experiences that I had. And about 2.5 years ago, I missed the classroom, but I didn't want to go back into the high school environment. So I decided to jump into the college environment, and I've been doing that for about 2.5 years at different colleges and universities. And I am extremely, extremely passionate about stories, about emotions, and about mental health. A lot of what I do is from the technical side, but so much of what I do with my clients and what I do with my students is helping them connect to the power of writing. And that so many times we have taken the skill of writing and we have taken the academics of writing, and sometimes we choke the life out of it to where the passion is gone. And I try to combine both of those in what I do. And really, a lot of my journey has been connecting to my own mental health, because becoming aware of my own mental health and taking care of it and prioritizing it saved my life, completely shifted the transition of my life, and allowed me to walk a path that I never imagined was possible. So, those are the questions. So I want to talk to you really quick because I know that the title of this is Mental Health and Our Students, but I am going to spend a good amount of time talking about you. Because what I have found with being in the educational environment, when I was teaching in high school, and even as I have come along and taught in the university setting, sometimes what happens a lot is that we, as educators, can get lost in the shuffle of education, which means that we spend so much time trying to figure out, how do I become a better educator? And I have found that most people that are in the field of education are not necessarily people who are looking for handouts. We're not people who are like, what can we get out of this? Most of the time, people in the education field are very much givers. We are very much passionate, not just about our topic, but we're passionate about our students. We don't just do it because we see a number or we see a person. We do it because we are emotionally invested in what we're doing. If we were all to go back to the moments of education, some of you might have gotten your degree in education. You specifically wanted to educate. Some of you might have found your way into this environment. Either way, the motive behind why we do what we do has a lot to do with how emotionally invested we are in helping people. Because really, when we're educating people, it's not just educating you based on a singular, isolated topic. It is the idea of I am pouring into you in the hopes that you take what I've given you and multiply it in your life, so then you can multiply it in other people's lives. If you look at that from a holistic perspective, that's a lot sometimes to bear. And when you are investing into other people's lives on a consistent basis, a lot of times what happens is that we put ourselves on the back burner and we sacrifice ourselves because that's what we have been taught, or that's what we believe, or that's the environment that we've always grown up in, to believe that that is the worthy sacrifice, that to sacrifice ourselves is what is then going to help the people that we are servicing. And I'm here to tell you that I believe wholeheartedly that the opposite is true. When we stop sacrificing ourselves and stop putting our own mental health, our own mental acuity, our own rest, our own reprieve on the back burner, when we stop doing that and start putting it in the forefront, what naturally happens is that the people that we are servicing, we stop feeling so tapped out. It's almost like when and fill in the cliche that we've heard, right? You can't fill someone else's cup if you are empty, right? When we go on the plane, you can't put everyone else's oxygen mask on while you die. So when we're talking about mental health and students, and we'll get into a lot of the statistics about our students, but there's just as many statistics about ourselves, about how educators are feeling right now, that in turn is going to impact our students. So I first want you to lean into a lot of the words that you wrote when we first got on this call, because it matters. How you're feeling right now matters. Because how you feel right now matters with how you're showing up in all of the areas of your life. It's not just secondary, you know? And sometimes when we're in situations where we are surrounded by people who need, right? They need. Sometimes we can say, I feel exhausted, but that doesn't matter because this person needs, that person needs, this job needs, right? But understanding that they're never going to stop needing. And if you don't address where you're at right now, and that doesn't become a priority for you to check in with you before you check in with other people, you'll be so busy giving and giving and giving and giving life to everyone else. Meanwhile, inside of you're dying, right? We're putting on the face. We're putting on the teacher hat because we have a job to do, and that is important, you know. Like, obviously we're not just going to get on, you know, we're not just going to get on our call, our teaching session, and say, gosh, students, this sucks, my life's like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that if you don't have a safe space for you, how can you be a safe space for other people? Because what we're being asked to do as educators is consistently evolving. We become all things to all people. But guess who the all things to all people we're not? To ourselves. I used to say all the time, I'm like, I spend every day asking everybody how they are and then listening because I really care. How are you? And I let people dump and I take in what they're saying. But then I realized, when's the last time I asked myself, Amy, how are you? So I want to acknowledge first and foremost that the mental health of our students starts with the mental health of you. So I want to talk about this because this was just a simple Google search. And this is not a reality that's new to any of us, because if you've been in the education field for any amount of time, you know this to be a reality. And especially right now, after we have come out of a global pandemic crisis, right? So it's not just our students who are struggling. We've gone through it just as much, right? So now chronic stress is a reality. which is based in our responses, right? So many of you are saying, yeah, I feel that. I am stressed right now. 40% of not this is of just adjunct professors. This is not just the teaching profession. So 40% of adjunct professors and professors are considering leaving. 48% of them are new and they're already considering leaving. All of us are having to deal with adapting to new teaching modes, right? Some of you might have just been used to being solely in person. So the online platform presents a whole different type of beast, especially if you are used to teaching things that are more it feels more conducive to be hands-on, right? So now you're dealing with, how do I teach this more effectively? I might have been doing this for years and now I have to figure out technology, but not just technology. How do I engage and bring the same level of engagement from in class to online? That brings extra stress. We're now in a state of high risk, low reward, right? It's a higher level of risk as far as failure rates are concerned and as far as student engagement and student motivation. And then the idea that, how do we meet the rising emotional and mental needs of our students? We're dealing with guilt and frustration, and 53% of us are saying that we are emotionally drained. And that's where we're at. So when I ask how you're doing and you're telling me you're feeling emotionally drained, frustrated, you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not that you're just not good enough. It's not that everybody else is getting it, but you're not. This is something that's going on holistically. There's a quote that John Maxwell has, and it's a hard one to bear, but it is true, right? Everything rises and falls on leadership. And for us, when we go into a classroom, we are that leadership. So we internalize a lot. So even if we know that we have, let's say, 5 students on our roster who aren't showing up to live lectures, they aren't doing their discussion posts, they're not doing their assignments, those might be the ones that are adamant about filling out your survey and saying, man, this teacher sucked. And everything rises and falls on us. That becomes high pressure. It's a high pressure situation, right? And then understanding that as an instructor, you're under the umbrella of higher leadership. So some things that higher leadership does, you don't have control over. So it's that everything rises and falls on leadership. So when we're talking about what we can control and understanding that when we wake up in the morning, the level of responsibility that we have can drain us, can make us already feel tired when we wake up in the morning, and can make us already feel depleted before our feet have hit the floor, that all of these things are a reality. What I'm saying to you is that that's not a moment for you to just push through and just continue giving. What I am saying is that the first person that needs to be filled and that needs to be nurtured and that needs to be addressed is you. That's the first person. Because before you can get into a state of giving to others, even if you're giving knowledge that's a part of you, I can sit in a live lecture and teach something that I have taught over and over and over again. We can do it, right? Like the knowledge is a part of us. But understanding that getting, even if you're getting behind a computer and you're presenting, you're still pouring out. It's still an action. And if you do it because you're passionate about it doesn't matter if you taught it 100 times. It still is taking something from you. So when you're starting your day, when you are starting, before you go, before you get up, what is that activity, or what are those activities that you're doing every day that feed back into you? My screen stopped sharing. What are those activities? Hold on, because it just kicked me off. Let me stop sharing for a minute. let me pull it back up. So what are you doing? And I'm going to talk while I pull this back up. What are you doing that feeds back into your mental health? So there's so many things that you can research that are proven to bring you back into a mental state that connects you with you. Because the biggest thing when it comes to improving mental health, and the biggest thing that comes when really helping you to connect back to you, right? It's just a matter of you getting the time with yourself to connect back to you. How do I give back to myself? And really, there are best practices, and then there are things that align with what you enjoy doing, that when you do it, you feel like you're aligned with you. You feel like you are putting effort back into you. It's not something that you're doing as a task. It's not something that you're doing for someone else. It's not something that you're doing because someone told you to do it. It's something that you're doing that says, I am spending time with myself. I am getting alone and I am being at peace and I am doing something that allows me to de-stress. Laura put gardening, exercise, journaling. Those are things, Laura, and I'm so glad you mentioned those things. Because even with exercise, right? If we're doing, and it doesn't have to be long, you don't have to spend hours doing it. Research says if you simply spend 15 minutes of movement, you're already releasing endorphins into your body. You're already getting things going where you are allowing yourself to de-stress. Let me pull this back up. Another thing, all right, here we go. Another thing is journaling. Okay, so journaling, the reason why I love journaling so much, and of course this comes a lot from my writing background and what I have done so many times with clients and what I have personally experienced on my own mental health journey. A lot of times when you spend so much time pouring into other people, it's that you start to disconnect from yourself. It's almost like, think about it as if you have a child or if you've been in class with students. And I mean, definitely being in the high school environment, I've had to learn this, right? If you've ever had a kid, they try to get your attention a lot, right? It's like, Miss Kochek, Amy. Or it's the questions of why, can I do it, questions all the time, right? And sometimes we can become so good at ignoring exterior stimuli, right? We just ignore it until we can pretend like it's not even there. Or we get to the point where we ignore it in the hopes that they just stop trying to get our attention, right? That's what we do to ourselves a lot, right? So like sometimes we can get so good at ignoring ourselves that we go numb, that our inner self is saying, hey, Amy, we're tired. Or, hey, Amy, like, we're frustrated. We're overwhelmed. We need a minute. Can we work through these emotions real quickly? Because if not, what happens is we shove and we shove and we shove until we become so disconnected, we don't even know how we feel. We're just so overwhelmed because all the emotions are down, down, down. And I have found with journaling, the power of journaling is for you to be present with yourself every day and ask yourself, how do I feel today? Good, bad, beautiful, ugly, everything in between. Sometimes, and there's so many different forms of journaling that you can do. You can do stream of consciousness journaling, which just means you sit down without a prompt and you just write what's going on in your head. Get it out. Let it breathe. Let it go free. You can do prompts. You can get journal prompts that ask you specific questions. You can do third person journaling where, and I do this a lot sometimes when I get in my own head too much. If you find that this is something that you do where you overthink and you get in your head and you feel blocked, sometimes it helps to step outside of yourself and write about yourself in the third person. If I'm looking at Amy from a third person point of view, what's going on with Amy and what does she need? Because a lot of times at the end of my journaling, when I'm free writing, I'll solve my own issues at the end of my journaling. Or sometimes it doesn't even need to be solved. Sometimes I just need to get it out. Another thing is gratitude, right? Tony Robbins does this whole, he has a session that he does all on gratitude. And one thing that he talked about was he had the people in the room focus on everything that was the color red. And he was like, I want you to look around the room and identify as many things that are red. If I asked you right now to do the same thing, look around your room and identify all the things that are the color red. What you're going to discover is, first of all, there's a lot of red that might be in your room that you never would have noticed had you not been prompted to look for it, right? So it's the same thing with gratitude. If you start your day with gratitude and you say, what is one thing, two things, three things, whatever it is that you want to, however many you're wanting to put, and you journal about it, what happens is that you go from just seeing that one thing to seeing like, okay, gratitude allows me to see abundance, where if I look at my gratitude for today, my gratitude says one thing that I'm grateful for in the midst of all the overwhelm of my life. I'm really grateful for supportive friends because my friends have been so supportive. So now that I've identified something in my life that I'm grateful for, I'm looking for even more abundance along that line. So when I see a friend, I don't just see a friend, I see, oh my goodness, abundance because I've identified it, because I began my day reminding myself of the abundance I have and not the lack that I feel. It doesn't deny the lack, it just shifts so that you can start to see more abundance. Another thing is breathing. This is going to sound totally insane. I started doing this a year ago, and I'm telling you, so much research shows that when you do intentional breathing, and I'm going to tell you there's a method called 4-7-8, which means you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, release out of your mouth for 8. And you do 10 rounds of that. It's not even, I think it's like 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not great at math, that's why I teach English. Whatever that timing is, it's a low amount of time. But what research shows is that when you are taking purposeful breaths in and breaths out, what you're doing is you're literally giving your brain nourishment. You are literally slowing yourself down, because what's happening to a lot of us is we are living in stress, which means that we are living, our heart rates are going fast, we're taking smaller breaths, so we are always in fight or flight mode, which means our hormones are jumping through the roof, our cortisol is through the roof, which is what keeps our body swollen, which is what makes us feel tired and overwhelmed. But literally, taking moments throughout the day, and I always suggest in the morning, but I also suggest throughout the day. I've been doing these breathing exercises 3 to 4 times a day. If I'm in the car, I'm like, all right, let me do my 4-7-8. If I'm waiting in line, all right, let me do my 4-7-8. Because literally it's taking a break. It's reminding your body, slow down. It's okay. Take a minute. Walking or some form of exercise. And when you are doing some form of exercise, it doesn't have to be go, 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 sweat, feel like you're dying. It is just movement of your body. Reading. And I'm not talking about reading to learn. I'm not talking about reading to get information to give to someone else. I'm talking about reading that just feeds you. Laughing. Taking time to laugh, scheduling fun activities that you enjoy doing. Do you like dancing? Do you like going to comedy shows? Do you like whatever it is that you enjoy? Now I know what you're thinking. Amy, this all sounds beautiful and great. Where is the time to do this? 100%, I get it. We have so many things on our plate. Some of you have families, you're working multiple jobs. There are so many things, right? But what if I asked you to take 1 or 2 of these things and you dedicate 15 minutes, wake up 15 minutes earlier than you normally would, and implement 1 to 2 of these things every single day? Because we think that in order to feed us, that we need hours. So then we use the excuse of time. And time is a reality, right? Like we only have a limited amount of it. So I'm not minimizing it. But at the same time, this deserves the highest value in your life, which means somewhere in your schedule, can you find 15 minutes to pour back into you? Because it's not even just the more time you spend, the better results. It is a matter of making it a priority every day. It is the matter of being consistent with it. It's the matter of saying, this is valuable. This is worthy of my time at some point during my day. So even if the goal is just 15 minutes, can you prioritize 15 minutes? Because now I'm shifting to our students, right? Because now when we are prioritizing these things and we are encouraging the mental health in our lives, now we become better equipped and better able to help our students with this. Because when we teach something that we know with our minds but we're not applying with our lives experientially, we teach out of integrity. We teach it, but we don't know how to live it. The best way to teach it is with our lives. When I come with a certain level of energy, I'm not coming because I have to put it on, right? I'm coming and I'm giving the passion and I'm giving the information and I'm also giving the experience because I'm living it. I'm experiencing it. It becomes a whole different teaching experience, not only for you, but for your students, because this becomes something that you're living. So if we look at the state of our students, and once again, I know none of this is new because this is something that we know is happening with our students right now. Just within the last year, from 2019 to 2020, 36.9% of college students who received mental health services considered suicide. That was 24% in 2010. So from 2010 to 2020, we've increased close to, what is that, 12, 13%? That's a big jump in 10 years. And if you just think about what's been going on with the last year, 56% of students are worried about their ability to care for their mental health. 63% of students say their mental health is worse after. That's a huge statistic. 82% of our students are dealing with anxiety. 68% are dealing with isolation and loneliness. 63% are dealing with suicide. 62% trouble concentrating. And the majority of our students are saying they're struggling with the online learning platform and being outside of the physical classroom. These are overwhelming statistics. If you look at this list and you realize that you're struggling with the same things, that's a hard task, right? Because if I'm struggling with anxiety and I'm trying to teach and help someone else with anxiety, it becomes an even more difficult task. Because once again, if I'm not doing as much as I can to deal with me, then once again, I teach outside of integrity. Then teaching becomes even more of a chore because, God, I got to tell you to do something I don't know. How do I know? I'm dealing with the same thing, right? Which is why so much of the task starts here, which becomes more encouraging. Because when I know that the only thing I can control and the only thing I can change is what happens inside of me, that means that when the change happens in here, then I'll be better equipped to create change outside of here. But when I feel like I can't control anything here, but I got to control everything outside here, that becomes a double whammy. But when my secret space and my quiet space and my place of rest is within, that becomes very encouraging. Because when I find strength here and I find strength within me, then when it comes time to teach my students, I'm not just teaching from an empty cup, and I'm not just teaching from an exhausted physical body that I've invested in me. So when I come to the computer or I come to a physical classroom, I'm here to not only teach the students the 5-paragraph essay, the intro, the body, and the conclusion. I'm also looking at them in the eye and I'm affirming them and saying, I get it, it's hard, but you can make it. I get it, you're dealing with anxiety. I get it, You're lonely. I get it. You're feeling isolated, but I'm telling you, I'm physically here and we're connected. Even if it's for a small amount of time, I am teaching you, but I'm bringing my energy. Energy is so important. I'm bringing my energy that says you are more than capable and that your life is not crashing around you. It might look like it, but there is so much hope beyond this moment. In my curriculum, because I have space for journals and because I love journaling, I encourage my students to journal. And throughout the modules, I pad in what's called check-in journals, and they're free writes. And they're minimum 100 words, and they can write about anything. And for one of them, I always say, this is a free write. I just want you to tell me, how are you doing? And I said, it can be as simple as, I'm fine. I don't want you to feel pressured, because I don't ever want my students to feel like, oh, she's wanting all my personal information, but I'm giving them a space and saying, this is a space, because I don't just care about you getting your education. I care about the person, because that's why we do what we do, right? We care about the person along with your mind. I care about you as an individual. So every term I get, you wouldn't believe the responses I get. And I've included just a few random quotes, and I've pulled this over the many terms that I've taught. One girl shared with me, my son was 4 years old when he passed away in his sleep. Now, obviously, he was too old for SIDS, but to this day, I still don't really have a clear answer to what happened to him. It was Mother's Day when I lost him. She shared that whole journey with me. Another girl shared her story about her miscarriage. Another one's talking about how she's frustrated because she feel like she has to hold the responsibilities of her entire family. Another student talked about the financial burdens he's facing. Another student talked about the abortion that she went through and the guilt that she has. Now, understanding that for that journal, it's not a situation for you to then take the role of a therapist, because obviously we can't solve everybody's problems. But it becomes an opportunity for me for each one of these journals. Because when I first did it, I didn't expect any of this. I really just expected them because it was, how are you feeling right now in this class, in these modules? And very rarely do I get stuff about content. And at the end of all of these, the majority of them will say, I just feel really good being able to write this. I feel really good being able to share this because I don't feel like I can share this a lot. And in the comment section, I usually just write something very simple. Thank you so much for sharing this. I just want to encourage you. And I personally encourage each one of them based on whatever it is that they've shared with me. So it's an opportunity for you, even in the online platform, right? Because we have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to connect deeply with our students, because in a full classroom environment, you might not get certain responses like that, right? Because of time constraints, because usually you're just going over the curriculum. But when we have modules padded in where we can add in discussions and we can add in journals that can be done at their own pace, it gives students the opportunity to share and to let things loose. So we're already getting them in the mode of journaling, of releasing some of the things that are going on in our lives, and for us just to do what it is that we are all desiring, which is just see me, like see me as a person. Because sometimes that's our desire, right? We wear so many hats, the hat of a teacher, a mother, a father, a husband, a wife. We have so many hats that have titles that sometimes we lose just the version of, see Amy. Outside of my responsibilities, outside of all the things I need to do, can you just see me for a minute? And sometimes just seeing me and acknowledging me as a person and just saying, I see you, that you're carrying a heavy burden. And I just want to encourage you. And I just want to tell you that you can make it. You can do this. And it might sound weird and cliche, But even sending cliches, even just sending, you're going to make it. You're going to be okay. Sometimes that alone can be the encouragement, because so many times we keep things locked up inside of us. I always like to say, in all of our needs, right? And this is our needs and our students' needs. These are the things that we value. We want to be seen. We want to be known. We want to be heard. We want to be loved, valued, and understood. And a lot of times the stressor points in our lives are when one of these values is not being met, where we feel like we aren't being heard, or that people in our lives aren't valuing us, or that we're just not being understood. And a lot of times our stressors come from that. So when we're talking about our students' values, obviously these values, we meet these values when we meet with ourselves in the morning, because what we're telling ourselves is, I see you. Before we need someone else to see us, do you see you? Do you know you? Are you listening to you? Are you loving you? Are you valuing you? Are you understanding you? Because that's who needs to meet our highest values first, which is where we come with giving ourselves even those 15 minutes, because we're trying to meet those values. When it comes to our students, when we're talking about seen, valued, heard, we're talking about all those things. There's certain strategies, right? And all of these strategies are padding in those values. So the first thing, right, being seen, is when we're doing our live lectures or in-person lectures, we're doing check-ins, just like I did. How are you feeling today? If you have a full list of people in your live lectures, have them type it in. Even if it's a live lecture, and there's nobody there, speak to them like they're there. Pretend that you have a whole host of students in your live lecture. If they're not putting in the chat, then say, I just want you to think about this. If you're not in my live, I want you to pause. How are you? How is your life going? It's stressful right now, right? It's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to say, I know a lot of you might be going through a lot, and I want to address you. And if people are on the live, you say their names. Janice, thank you for joining me today. How are you? Stressed. Janice, I get it. It's difficult, but we can do this. We're making them feel seen. We're saying their names. We're acknowledging who they are beyond our curriculum, beyond our goal of teaching, because to teach first means I connect to the person first. So you're doing check-ins in your discussions, your live lectures, the questions from the lecture. When they have to go back and they have to reflect from the live lecture, can you pad in something that gives you a check-in? Because in those, only you are seeing those. So you're not asking them to share it with everyone. So maybe you have them type it in their reflection of the lecture itself. If you have places in your module and in your curriculum, what kind of journal prompts can you do that promote release, that are just stream of consciousness, that allow you to connect with them on a level where you can make them feel seen, where you get an opportunity just to encourage them, where you're able to do what makes teaching fun, which is actually connect with another human being and encourage them and make them feel better than when they came. You give them more confidence, not just in their content, you give them confidence in themselves. We're building confidence in themselves to take what we're teaching them and not only just to apply it, but how do I live this out? You can incorporate tips of the day. I started doing this at the beginning of 2021 because I found that so many of my students were stressed with the online learning environment. So I started doing tip of the day, and I started doing organization tip of the day, organization tip of the day. And I know a lot of these are padded right within a lot of our modules and curriculum, but sometimes you just gotta lead the horse to the trough and then give them the water. Because sometimes our students aren't going to look for that. So if I have an opportunity to be face-to-face, tip of the day can be really quick. For organization purposes, one thing you might want to do, I'm going to call it Serenity Sundays. This Sunday, I want you to try to put your phone away for 1 hour, and I just want you to list all the things that you're working on this week. That'll be my tip of the day. So what's a tip? What tip of the week, since we do weekly lectures, What's a tip of the week that you can give them that helps them get out of their head, get the stress out of their head, and helps them to really have a successful week in your class? Show them the value beyond just the curriculum, and they will plug in to you and to what you're teaching. Have a question of the week that prompts engagement, right? There's the discussion that's just within just you talking to your students. Make use of that, because a lot of times students just see that as a place to chat. But if you go on there and you incorporate your chat in there, but you also have a question of the week, what is something you're super proud of this week? Tell me. And you can be encouraging. What's something that you learned this week that you didn't think you can learn? Let it be something encouraging. Give them an opportunity to see the good. What's one thing you're grateful for this week? When you're giving feedback, right? Encouragement, in the way that we do our feedback, encouragement at the beginning, opportunities for growth in the middle, encouragement at the end. Even with what I do with my writing, right? A lot of times with writing, I'm giving a lot of feedback. This is what you need to improve upon. But the main thing that I do is I encourage the person. Because so many times when it comes to difficulty learning, it's because we've embraced limiting beliefs about ourselves that say, I just can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I can't get this. We have all of these thoughts, right? So when I'm encouraging them, I'll tell them, I really like how you did this. Or I'll say, I've noticed that in your last writing to this writing, you are starting to write longer sentences. And I'm really proud of you for challenging yourself in that way. You're pointing out not just what they're doing with the work, but what you see them doing with themselves as a person. So we're not just building up the curriculum. We're not just building up the deliverables. We're building up the person. Another thing you can do is preparing your energy. Before I got on here, I prepare my energy. So before I do it, I journal, I do my deep breathing, and then I do some form of meditation. If you like to pray, I do positive affirmations, and my positive affirmations all revolve around the students. I am speaking to the heart of my students. My students are becoming encouraged from not just the work, but from the words that I speak. My energy makes my students feel seen. I'm bringing my energy because I want them to match what I'm bringing. I want them to feel what I feel about them. I want them to know I don't just see your name. I want you to know that I see you. Utilize their names as much as possible in the feedback. Every time in the feedback, you say their name. When they're on live, you say their name. When they're not even on live, say their names. Take that roster out. Hey, so-and-so, I know you're not on the live lecture. I hope you're doing well. It's a virtual room, and we get to do what we want in the virtual room. We can make it come alive as much as we want. We can either be sad that it's virtual, or we can make it as alive as a classroom as we want. You can send an encouraging email each week. I try to do 3 to 5, and it's so simple. I'll pick 3 randoms, and I'll say, and I'll try to personalize it. In your narrative essay this week, I just want to tell you that I so appreciate the vulnerability that you shared, and I'm so proud of you. Bam, sent a sentence. Takes me 5 minutes. Familiarize yourself with the support services for Rasmussen. So when you're talking to your students, and then you know that they might be struggling with stress or organization, as much as you can, refer them to the services that they're already paying for, right? What do we already offer that they can utilize, that they can have as an extra support so that they know you're not alone? If you, in your own research, in your own development of your mental health, the helpful articles that you're coming across, resources that you're finding, share it as much as possible. Hey, students, I know that a lot of you have been saying that you've really been struggling with time management. I read this great article. It's a quick read. I hope that it really helps you, right? And we can put that in our announcements as much as possible to help them, to give them extra resources, and it doesn't take us much time. The main thing is utilizing the time that we have, pouring into ourselves, and then that's where we get to share it with others. Because as I grow and as I become more mentally sound, I can then just take what I'm learning and share it. Prioritize and normalize the conversation on taking care of the student as a whole person. Normalize that within yourself, that we are not limited on the virtual platform. We just are offered an opportunity to get more creative. And the more creative that you become, the more that you can realize, man, I have an even more beautiful opportunity, because students that might come into my classroom and sit in the back row and get lost in the shuffle, they're now in my virtual room, and there's opportunities for them to share, and there's opportunities for them to connect. And I get to see that, and I get to be present, and I get to talk on the discussion board as much as possible. Whereas when I'm in the classroom, when they leave, I leave, right? But it's just a matter of getting more creative as possible and realizing as much as you want to invest in your students, you can on a virtual level. The last thing I want to leave you with is the last thing that your students should hear on a live lecture, in a discussion, and the message that should be the undertone of everything about your life and about your students' life. The first one is, you are valuable. You are worth the time, and you are worth the effort to spend with yourself. And your mental health matters, and how you are feeling matters every single day. And the first person that needs to know that is you. And what you do with that is totally up to you. You get to be as creative as possible, but finding ways to pour back into yourself is important. And the second thing is that our students are valuable. And we know this, right? We know this. But who they are as a person, it hasn't changed on the virtual platform. Our ability to reach them hasn't minimized on the virtual platform. It's just about getting creative and learning new and creative ways to invest in our students from the standpoint of a virtual. Because if we view it limited, then it will be limited. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we view this as ineffective, then it will be ineffective. As opposed to us speaking things and saying, this is an opportunity for me to get more creative, then immediately, I promise you, you'll start to see more creative opportunities. These two can and do coexist, because when you take care of you, you are taking care of your students. And really, if you take care of you, you are taking care of everybody else in your life. So I hope that you gain something from this. I hope that you go away from this feeling encouraged about yourself and empowered about a singular human being, so that you can continue doing what I know that you are doing on such a large scale, which is helping which is helping so many people. And I just want to say that I am honored that you were here, that you took the time to listen. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.